problems, depression, anxiety disorder, personality disorders. Substance use may even created or unlocked a dormant mental health problem. When the person gets sober, these symptoms start to get worse. Well-meaning friends in recovery or family members may suggest that it's just because they're not putting enough effort into their recovery plan. Such advice can be unhelpful. If people are suffering from real mental health disorders, they need proper treatment for their symptoms, and if their symptoms aren't treated, they will continue to cause problems for their recovery. Grief and loss. Let's see here. Trauma, grief, and loss. I remember working with an individual who lost a loved one 3 decades ago, and they stayed drunk or high for 30 years trying to avoid the grief and guilt they had caused over causing that death of a loved one. Once a person got sober, it was like they were transported right back in time, at least emotionally, to the days right after the tragedy occurred. Individuals in early sobriety often struggle with the unthawing of their emotions, and the intensity of these emotions can be very relapse-provoking. Cognitive distortions, unclear, unfocused thinking. The person in early recovery may have trouble remembering, focusing for long periods of time, or learning new material, making recovery even more difficult because in early recovery, they're being asked to retain a lot of new information about both their disease and the skills they need to practice to put it into remission. To the outsider, it might seem like they're not doing the work, or they're not getting it, or they're not trying hard enough, but it may be really due to some serious cognitive impairments. Physical health problems. Hepatitis, HIV, heart, lung, liver, digestive problems. This person does all the work to get sober only to find out they have a life-altering disease, which can be devastating to one's recovery. Legal consequences. Person may feel trapped. And remember that word trapped because we're going to talk a little bit about it later. Worried about losing everything as they face going to jail or prison. They may have to pay massive fines. I worked with a young man in jail who owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in restitution and had several felonies on his record, making it very difficult to even find a minimum wage job. And this person felt like, what's the point of struggling to get sober if all that awaits me is a bleak future and crushing debt? Dealing with the shame and guilt, rebuilding relationships. Now that the person is sober, they may have an unrealistic idea that other people will see the hard work and the changes that they're making, and they may get rejected by the very same people they decided to get sober for. This can be a huge obstacle for staying in recovery and puts the person further at risk for suicide. The person may feel lethargic, have difficulty establishing sleep patterns. Individuals do not tend to make good decisions when they're tired. So when you combine insomnia, legal consequences, anhedonia, depression, anxiety, guilt, shame, fear,